Picture this. The year is 186 before Common Era. You are a Roman father. Your family is respected, wealthy, secure. You have arranged an excellent marriage for your daughter. The alliance is favorable, the dowry generous. She is 16 years old, educated, carefully raised, taught obedience, modesty, duty. The wedding ceremony unfolds perfectly. The prayers are spoken. The feast is lavish. Your daughter smiles when she should, performs happiness the way she has been trained to do. And then, when the public celebration ends, something else begins. Your daughter is led away for the final ritual, the one no one explains, the one never discussed in polite company, the one every Roman family knows exists, but pretends not to see. As she is taken from the hall, she turns back once. Her eyes meet yours. There is a question there, not spoken, but unmistakable. You do not answer it. You look away, not because you do not love her, but because you know what is about to happen, and you know you cannot stop it. This is a ritual Rome buried so deeply that even ancient historians avoided naming it directly. What survives comes in fragments, legal language without explanation, censored plays, sealed chambers beneath temples, names carved into stone without context. What I am about to tell you is drawn from surviving legal concepts, archaeological evidence, and ancient writers who hinted at something they could not fully describe. It reveals something profoundly unsettling about how religion, law, and marriage intersected in ancient Rome. Between roughly 300 before Common Era and 200 Common Era, Roman marriage was not simply a private contract. It was a religious transaction. Legal sources make clear that a marriage was not fully valid until certain sacred requirements were met, requirements overseen not by husbands, but by religious authorities. Roman sources point toward a ritual framed as an offering to the gods, sometimes called ditio deorum, a symbolic giving over before marriage could be completed. The terminology matters, because nothing about this was described as violence. It was described as duty. Under Roman law, marriage transferred a woman from her father's authority to her husband's. This transfer was called manus, literally, the hand. But legal sources suggest that before a woman could fully become a wife, she had to be purified. That word appears again and again. Purification. Purification was not metaphorical. It was a ritual act overseen by priests, guardians of divine will, particularly those associated with Bona Dei, the good goddess, whose cult focused on fertility and reproduction. Her rites were secret, restricted, legally protected from scrutiny. Roman religion operated on exchange. You offered something to the gods, and the gods granted favor in return. But here, the offering was not wine or grain. It was the bride herself. Imagine what that meant. You are 16. You have been raised to believe marriage is your highest duty. You know obedience. You know silence. What you do not know, because no one tells you, is that before you belong to your husband, you must first belong to the gods. And the gods require proof. If you think this sounds disturbing, drop a comment below. Tell me if you believe this really happened. And if you want more suppressed histories, subscribe to Ancient Grim History. Across Rome, archaeologists have uncovered underground chambers beneath major temples. Stone platforms shaped like beds. Channels cut into floors for liquid drainage. Heavy doors designed to lock from the outside. In 2003, excavations beneath the Temple of Bona Dei revealed one such chamber. The most disturbing feature was the writing. Carved into the walls were names, hundreds of them, all female, many with dates that align with known Roman wedding celebrations. Archaeologist Catherine Johns concluded cautiously that these inscriptions recorded women who had undergone a ritual connected to marriage eligibility. The nature of the ritual was not explicitly stated. That phrase signals restraint, not ignorance. After the public wedding, the bride was not taken home by her husband. He was excluded. She was escorted by female attendants to the temple, led downward, away from light, away from witnesses. Stone steps, cold air, a chamber beneath the city. The playwright Plautus alluded to such rites in a comedy later heavily censored. In one surviving fragment, a character remarks, "The gods take their portion before any man." Another asks what the bride receives in return. The answer, purification if she survives it. That line does not appear in later copies. The philosopher Lucretius wrote, "They call these rites sacred, but they are terror. What the priest claims to offer the gods, he takes for himself, and the law shelters the theft by naming it divine." Now place yourself back as the father. You know this exists. You know your daughter will undergo it. And you do nothing, because refusing would mean defying religion, law, tradition. The system was designed so that no one could resist without destroying themselves. Comment below if you think fathers were complicit or trapped by the system just like their daughters. What made this practice so difficult to expose was not a lack of victims. It was the law. Roman women who underwent sacred rites were legally forbidden from speaking about them. Certain ceremonies were classified as mysteria, sacred acts protected by secrecy statutes. To reveal them was framed as impiety. Women who revealed sacred rites could be charged with impiety, punished with exile, property seizure, or death. The victims were legally silenced. The perpetrators called it sacred, but silence is not the same as forgetting. In the 1920s, archaeologists excavating near Pompeii uncovered a sealed chamber, deliberately bricked up before the eruption. Inside was a fresco depicting a conventional Roman wedding, but in the background, partially obscured, was another scene. A woman being led downward by robed figures, her head turned back, one arm reaching toward a man who was not following. The hidden figure's face was painted with greater precision and emotional detail than the bride at the center. Someone wanted that face to be seen. They could not describe the ritual openly. That would be illegal, but they could paint it, hide it, and hope someone would understand. That is not passive acceptance. That is documentation. After the ritual, the bride was returned wearing a veil called the flammeum, a thick, brightly colored cloth. The veil was never removed. Not during the feast, not during consummation. The physician Serenus advised, the veil serves a double purpose. It preserves modesty, and it prevents the husband from observing signs of the purification rite, which might provoke improper questions. The veil did not symbolize virtue. It concealed evidence. The bride could not speak. That was illegal. The husband was discouraged from noticing. That was custom. The system required compliance. And for generations, it worked. Stay with me, because what happened next almost brought the entire system crashing down. In 186 before Common Era, a Roman woman named Hispala Ficenia testified about abuses within the Bacchanalia, secret religious rites. Her testimony described underground chambers, sexual violence under religious authority, victims bound by silence laws. The Senate reacted with shock. Priests were arrested. Rites were banned. But when several women attempted to testify about marriage purification rituals connected to Roman tradition itself, the Senate refused to hear them. The consul Spurius Postumius declared, "The Bacchanalia are foreign corruptions. The rites of Bona Dei are Roman tradition. We do not investigate tradition. Call it ancient, call it sacred, call it tradition, and suddenly it becomes untouchable." The women were warned to remain silent or face charges of impiety. Most complied. One did not. Her name does not survive. She stood in the forum and publicly described what happened beneath the temple. Within hours, she was arrested, exiled to Sicily, forbidden from returning to Rome. She disappears from the historical record. But not everything disappears. In 1964, archaeologists discovered graffiti carved near the Roman Forum, dating to approximately 180 before Common Era. It reads, "Tradition is what monsters call their crimes when no one stops them." Someone carved that message into stone at the center of Roman political power. Someone risked everything to leave it behind. Drop a comment if you think that woman was a hero or foolish to throw her life away. The ritual did not vanish. It evolved. By the late 1st century before Common Era, elite families began paying for symbolic ceremonies, rituals without chambers, without physical contact. The priests accepted these substitutions because this had never truly been about religion. It was about power. Once wealth could buy exemption, the nature of the system became impossible to ignore. Among elite families, the practice faded. Among the poor, it continued. They could not afford alternatives. The satirist Juvenal noted, "The poor still offer their daughters to the old gods. The rich offer gold instead." The system did not end because it was recognized as wrong. It weakened because participation became optional for those with power. As long as consequences fell on other people's daughters, the practice was defended. The moment it threatened elite households, it became negotiable. For centuries, scholars minimized these accounts. They described evidence as fragmentary, suggested exaggeration. They did everything except confront the pattern itself. Why? Because acknowledging this forces an uncomfortable conclusion. That Rome, praised as the foundation of Western civilization, embedded coercion and exploitation into rituals presented as sacred and lawful. But archaeology does not argue. Underground chambers exist. Inscriptions exist. Legal language exists. Literary references exist. Individually, each piece might be dismissed. Together, they form a pattern. In 2018, a research team published a comprehensive review concluding that evidence strongly suggests certain purification rites involve coercive sexual acts carried out under religious authority, reinforced by structures that prevented resistance or accountability. Translated plainly, this happened. It was not accidental, and the system protected itself. If you have stayed this far, subscribe to Ancient Grim History. This is not just about Rome. This is about every system that calls abuse tradition. Yet this is also a story about resistance. The woman who stood in the forum and spoke, knowing what would happen. The artist who painted the hidden fresco. The person who carved truth into stone. Families who chose their daughter's safety over obedience. Historians who preserved dangerous fragments. None stopped the machine alone, but they documented it. They left traces, and those traces survived Rome's power. Systems of abuse rarely collapse because everyone suddenly agrees they are wrong. They collapse because enough people refuse to participate, withdraw consent, leave records, decide that tradition does not excuse cruelty. You can stand in Rome today and see these temple remains. Broken columns, scattered stone. Tourists pass by without stopping. But beneath the ruins, the chambers remain. And on the walls, the names are still there. Julia, Cornelia, Flavia, Fulvia. Women who underwent rituals they were forbidden to describe. Women who could not testify, could not accuse, could not refuse. So they carved their names, not as rebellion, but as proof of existence. I was here. This happened to me. They left those words trusting that someday someone might understand what they were not allowed to say. We found them. We understand. And we refuse to let Rome's version of history be the only one that survives. Ask yourself this. How many other traditions across history function the same way? How many customs we call sacred were actually systems of control? How many names are still hidden, waiting to be noticed? The Roman marriage purification ritual is not unique. It is a blueprint, and once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. Subscribe to Ancient Grim History and turn on notifications. Drop a comment and tell me what disturbed you most and what other dark histories you want me to investigate next. Because the past is not clean. The past is grim. And on this channel, we do not look away.